X870, X870E are launching, and there are some people that are going to upgrade. They're going to think it's worth the price of admission just for the I/O layout. And this board in particular is a great example of the I/O upgrades that you'll have on the X870 platform. Or if you're just thinking about getting into AM5 for the first time, why you might want to look at an X870E platform. Let's dive in. This is from MSI. This is the MSI MPG X870E Carbon Wi-Fi. This is basically at the top of the stack. Okay, there are higher end boards from MSI, the Godlike series, for example. Yes, but this is basically everything except without being completely ostentatious. What you get from X870E, among other things, DDR5, 8000 support. There's some asterisks and caveats there because of the way that the AM5 platform works that we do need to talk about, but I tested this thing up to 8200 with excellent results. But also USB 4, Thunderbolt peripheral compatibility, basically. USB 4 is not Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is an Intel technology, but this is a USB-C connectivity that you've come to know and love as Thunderbolt. Basically, it's PCIe tunneling on the motherboard, but you plug in a Thunderbolt peripheral to the AMD platform and it works. External GPU dock? Yeah, no problem. This motherboard has 2 of those ports, and that's pretty exciting. It's basically the life lessons that AMD has learned from their mobile platforms that feature USB 4, but now in a desktop form factor, including display out. This motherboard has an 18+2+1 duet power rail delivery system. That means that rather than having phase doublers or something like that, there's just, listen, AM5, 170 watts to 230 watts with an overclock, you really don't need over-the-top power delivery. This will work fine even for your 9950X extreme overclock. But look at that beautiful I/O layout. Got all that Type A layout, and then you got the 3 Type C ports, well, the 2 USB 4 plus a USB 3.2 Gen 2. Then you got another 10 gigabit Type C over there underneath the LAN port. You get your Wi-Fi 7 interface. Yes, Wi-Fi 7. 5.6 gigabits per second from across the room on the Asus Spider Crab with the appropriate Wi-Fi settings. You do have to tune a few things, but yeah, 320 megahertz channel width and some specific settings in the Asus Spider Crab, but hey, it's fine. Our 3 X16 physical slots can run at X8, X8 electrical or X16, X0 electrical. The other slot, the bottom slot, is X4 from the chipset, but you can fit an X16 peripheral in there physically. The bottom slot is Gen 4, the other 2 are Gen 5. And of course, X870 chipsets are ready for your Ryzen 9000 series CPU. If you're looking at buying a less expensive motherboard, maybe you want to do X670E with your 9000 series Ryzen processor, that will work fine. However, you may end up buying a board that doesn't have a BIOS that supports the processor. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. How do you flash the BIOS without a CPU that'll boot the system? A lot of boards have BIOS flashback, including this board, for whenever that happens with some 9000 series CPU or 11,000 or 10,000 or whatever the next series of CPU is. But if you get an older X670 motherboard because you decided that's a better fit for what you want to do, and make sure it's got BIOS flashback. You'll need that, and you'll have to go through some very specific steps in order to set up the BIOS flashback process to flash the BIOS without a CPU. It is a little strange that the X870 motherboards are coming so much later than the Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. It's about a month apart. So this is a quick release push button system as we have seen on other solutions. This has pogo pins for the RGB that are built in, and yes, you can even do that with the secondary M.2. So you have a total of 4 M.2, including a 110mm slot. If you picked up some of those 110mm 375 gig Optane drives on super sale, or you're rocking some old 110mm Enterprise M.2, which sometimes are a fantastic deal in the secondary market, that'll work great in its 110mm slot. It's extra long. One concern I have with this motherboard is if you are going to run a dual GPU configuration, this extra power input for the motherboard, which you do need because these GPUs can pull a lot of power through the motherboard. You need it for stability, ideally. You don't really have a lot of room here. Like most of gaming GPUs these days are 3-4 slots. That's going to have to hang off the end of your motherboard. There are cases that'll do that, like the Fractal Define XL series. You get an extra slot at the end. You get 8 slots basically. So you could run a triple GPU in this configuration, but it's going to block all the non-right angle connectors at the bottom edge of the motherboard. If instead you're using the bottom slot for something like PCIe Gen 5 storage, this is not a problem at all. And the Gen 5 storage could also use extra power. Sometimes the Gen 5 cards have their own extra power connector though, in which case you wouldn't need the extra one at the bottom. One other really cool feature with the rear I/O in this motherboard that I forgot to mention is the smart button. You can define what that button is. It is unfortunately right next to the clear CMOS button, so it will be really easy to accidentally hit. In terms of USB I/O, we have 2 very nice right angle 20-pin USB 5GB connectors at the front edge of the motherboard, our 27-watt USB Type-C charging connector, and then we've also got our Easy connector for the front panel. The motherboard bundle for this motherboard also includes our USB driver installer / recovery installer. This is hugely useful for BIOS flashback. Save this, put it in the box, don't use it for other stuff. We've also got our hex installation key, which is just a little hex installation key tool. Got our Easy I/O connector front panel breakout / USB right angle connection. Got our RGB header, our 5050 header extension. And this is all you get for an installation manual. It's basically just QR codes and stuff online, which actually I kind of like. I kind of agree with. There is a quick installation guide for mounting your CPU here, but check the guides online, watch our videos. Now the aforementioned hex tool is useful for removing the M.2 standoffs if you do need to install 110mm M.2 or for some reason you don't want to use the quick release buttons. Did he say quick release buttons? Yeah. How cool is that? This is what M.2 should have been forever. It's metal, it's not plastic. You push the button and the M.2 releases, or you click it down and it's clicked down forever. Now when you're installing your M.2, you need to peel the plastic off of this so that the thermal pad makes good contact with your M.2. I didn't do that because I'm just showing you that this is easy to peel and release. When you pull the plastic off there, it's going to be a little sticky. And so when you push it down on there, it's going to stick to your M.2. And so when you release your M.2 latch, your M.2 is not going to want to come up. It's not going to move because it's stuck to the thermal pad. And that's what you want. You want your M.2 to physically stick to the thermal pad. So when you're going to do this, take the plastic off. Trust me. With the X870E chipset launching basically today, I didn't have a ton of time with this board, and this is something that I want to revisit in the future, but quickie testing with our 9950X, including an overclock, yeah, the VRM solution is more than adequate. It doesn't throttle, doesn't leave any performance on the table with the 9950X, which is very nice to see. This is also a pretty awesome setup. This is also the first MSI board that I've had in a long time where ECC might actually be working. If you're into ECC for this use case, be sure to check out the Level 1 Linux channel where we do a deep dive into IOMMU groups, ECC memory, and that sort of thing. This might be a first-class citizen for Linux testing. There's a couple of things you should know. You'll have to check out the Level 1 Linux channel in order to find that. I think this is probably down to the updated AMD AGISA, the ECC enablement, but it's still up to the board partners to decide whether they want to enable ECC or not. So that's something that I'm still investigating. In terms of board support for fast memory, DDR5 8000, 8200 on this platform is a dream. And I think MSI's tools, Memory Try It, and some of the other tools in their BIOS are even better than AMD's tools for enabling faster memory. And that's one of the features on the new 800 series chipsets. AMD really has got to let their brilliant engineers spread their wings a little bit more. I understand that the memory overclocking stuff has come from the inside. It's a homegrown tool on the X870 platform, and it is fantastic. We need more of that. We need more fine-tuning. I want to see something like MOPP, which is, you know, memory overclock profile, performance profile stuff that'll let you take your DDR5 8200 and rejigger the timings so that you could run at that 2000 infinity clock or 2133 or whatever your chip is actually capable of. Maybe if we had a tool that's like, okay, this is as fast as you can go on the fabric side of things, let's recalculate your memory timings for whatever memory you have in order to make sense at that fabric speed, because fabric speed dominates all. Well, MSI's Memory Try It feature lets you just sit there and bang away on it, although Zen timings and other tools that exist for that can also be used in the same way. That's just sort of a fun thing that you can do with your AM5 platform. MSI has put more thought into this, and you know, USB 4 basically being the headline feature of X870E. MSI has done a good job with the I/O layout, and you will basically want for nothing, except maybe 10 gigabit Ethernet, which I have a feeling is coming on the Godlike. Mark my words. So yeah, this is a great board. At Micro Center, it seems like these boards are going to be around $500, but Pricing is a little tricky depending on your region and where you are, and I have a feeling the pricing is going to fluctuate. But $500 for a premium AM5 experience, yeah, that's about where the other premium experience boards are priced. So, okay, let's get some mileage on this board and report back later. If you want to see me take this thing for a test, or you want to see something in particular in the forums, hit me up in the Level 1 forums. I'm Wendell, I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.